6 minutes into the season 4 finale, the sky over Fromville goes black. In the middle of the day. Not a storm rolling in. The actual day-night switch this show has run on since episode 1 just fails. And I don't think that's a plot beat. I think it's a confession. The show just told us in broad daylight that its own rulebook has a crack running through it. And once you find that crack, the mythology stops being 40 separate mysteries and starts looking like one machine. That's the file I'm opening today. Not what is the bottle tree on its own, not who is the man in yellow on its own, all of it stapled together. Because here's the thing I've noticed watching this fandom pick the show apart for 4 years. Everybody's theory is kind of right. The psychological read is right. The this is a game with rules read is right. The this town is a story that knows it's being told read is right. Nobody's wrong. Everyone's just holding one page of the same file. So today I'm putting the whole case together, running it against what actually happened in the season 4 finale, and yes, before we're done, I'm gonna tell you exactly how I think this thing ends. Let's get into it. Strip away the marketing and the monster of the week stuff, and every serious theory about this show sorts into exactly 3 drawers. Drawer 1 says the town is a mind, specifically a very old, very Jungian mind, and the whole cast is a set of psychological functions wearing human faces. Drawer 2 says the town is a game, a rules-based system with reset mechanics, hidden win conditions, and 2 players who've been at this for centuries. Drawer 3 says the town is a story, a text, aware of its own construction, that keeps recasting the same doomed roles because the plot can't move forward until somebody actually finishes reading it. Normally I'd pick my favorite and argue for it. I'm not doing that this time, because the deeper I got into this, the more I realized these 3 drawers describe the exact same object. A psyche that can't face its trauma, a game that resets when nobody wins, and a story that can't end until it's understood. Those aren't 3 different shapes. That's one shape, photographed from 3 angles. Stick with me because the synthesis is where the ending lives. Start with the plainest fact about this place. Nobody builds it. You arrive, and it's already furnished. Already has its monsters, its rituals, its nailed-up symbols on every doorframe. That's not how towns work. That's exactly how Carl Jung described the collective unconscious. A layer of the psyche that isn't personal memory, that predates the individual, that's inherited fully assembled. You don't build the basement of your own mind. You're born into one that's already there, already stocked, already a little haunted. Swap psyche for town, and the premise of this show writes itself. The talismans fit the same shape. Jung spent years cataloging mandalas, circular, ordered symbols the mind produces on its own during a crisis. Not because anyone designed them, but because a fracturing psyche throws up order wherever it can to keep itself from coming apart. That's precisely the job description of a talisman hung on a doorframe at dusk. Nobody in Fromville understands the mechanism. They just know it's the thing standing between them and the dark, which is exactly how Jung said these symbols function in a real mind too. You don't engineer them, you just reach for them. Now the founding wound, because this show actually put it on screen instead of leaving it to inference. The original residents traded their own children for immortality. 7 kids, sacrificed so the adults could refuse the one thing every person has to eventually accept. And what did the adults become? Not immortal in any way they'd recognize. They became the creatures. Things that can't die and can't stop killing. That's textbook enantiodromia, Jung's term for what happens when you push hard enough toward one extreme. You flip into its opposite. Chase eternal life hard enough and you become an engine of eternal death. Smiley doesn't stay down because the wish got granted, and the granting was the curse. Which brings us to the man in yellow, and I want to be precise here because Season 4 actually upgraded this reading rather than just decorating it. We've known since the reveal in Sophia that he's a shapeshifter, wearing a girl's face to get close to people before killing the man who thought he was her father. But watch what Episode 9 confirmed about how that shapeshifting actually works. He isn't inventing faces from nothing. He's assembling them. The blue dress, the identity, the whole persona, out of objects and memories left behind by residents who already died here. He is mechanically on screen doing the exact thing Jung said the shadow does to a mind. He takes buried material nobody's dealt with and wears it back out into the world as something that looks like anyone but himself. That's not a metaphor holding up under a new episode. That's the metaphor getting a stress test and passing. And Jung was blunt about the one thing you can't do to a shadow. You cannot beat it by force. You don't get to shoot the part of yourself you've refused to look at. The only thing that ever disarms it is recognition. Dragging it into the light and admitting it was never really out there to begin with. Which is why every armed response Fromville has ever mounted against this thing has done roughly nothing. Wrong tool. You don't kill a shadow, you out it. Second drawer. Forget psychology for a second and look at how this place actually behaves as a system. Because the show has been dropping mechanical structural clues since season 1 that only make sense if you stop reading Fromville as a haunted location and start reading it as a rule set. Start with power. The wiring in this town runs into the tunnels and just stops. No source, no generator. And yet the lights work, the music boxes work, anything native to the town functions fine, while outside electronics brought in from elsewhere don't. That's not how electricity behaves in a real place. That's how it behaves in a designed one, where something upstream has decided what's allowed to function and what isn't. Then there's the population math. The number 47 keeps surfacing in ways too specific to be scenery. Resident counts, background numbers, the same way 12 keeps recurring across totally unrelated character details. A show doesn't repeat numbers like that by accident over 4 seasons. It's laying track for something. I won't pretend the fandom has cracked exactly what 47 or 12 unlock yet. Nobody has. But the repetition itself is the tell. This place tracks state. And then this season, the entity finally said the quiet part out loud. It's playing several games at once. Not haunting one town, running Fatima's transformation, Boyd's breakdown, Henry's unraveling sense of reality, and the hunt for the bones, all simultaneously, as separate threads it's managing in parallel. That single confirmed line reframes the whole show. This isn't one continuous horror story. It's a dungeon master juggling several tables. We also learned it has actual limits, and this is the part I think gets underrated. It needs to be physically present to gather intelligence. When Sophia asks probing questions, she's not performing menace for atmosphere. The entity genuinely doesn't know things until it's in the room asking. And when Jade and Tabitha broke from the plan and went into the tunnels themselves, instead of the expendable extras it expected, the entity had to improvise in real time, because it needs those two souls alive to reach whatever endgame it's building toward. A god that has to adjust on the fly because 2 humans change their itinerary is not an all-knowing force. It's a player working with imperfect information, same as everyone else at the table. Which sets up the finale's biggest reveal for this theory. The man in yellow and the boy in white are confirmed on screen to be running a long game against each other, and the residents are the board. After Jade and Tabitha get the bones out, a first in this show's entire run, across every cycle we know about, the 2 of them cross paths in the woods. One is clearly rattled that the humans just scored a point. The other is suspiciously calm about it, because he's already banked a bigger one. While everyone was distracted underground, he stripped every talisman out of the town and dumped them in the Faraway Tree, leaving Fromville with 0 protection the next time the sun goes down. Read that exchange as 2 players comparing scorecards, not a villain gloating at a victim. And the whole season snaps into focus as a chess match where humans are the pieces and the board itself. The bottle tree, the bones, the talismans is the stakes. Third drawer, and this is the one that took me the longest to accept because on its face it sounds like the flimsiest reading. But the show handed us its own vocabulary for this one, and it did it on purpose. When Julie comes back from the tunnels having slipped backward into a scene that already aired seasons ago, Ethan doesn't reach for time travel. He calls her a story walker, someone who can visit chapters that already happened. Chapters. That's a book word, not a physics word, and the show chose it deliberately. And it holds up under pressure. Whatever Julie does down there, she isn't changing anything. She was always the one who threw the rope. Her trip back is just the moment we finally see whose hands did it. That's not a time travel paradox. That's turning to a page that was already printed. Now put the man in yellow back on the table because under this reading, he stops being a villain and starts looking like something closer to an editor. He's the one who told Jim, back in season 1, that his wife shouldn't be digging up what she was digging up. knowledge comes with a cost. He's the one who tells Julie, mid-rescue, that she can't rewrite what's already happened. He isn't hovering outside the book giving orders. He's inside it, walking around in a borrowed face, enforcing the rule that nobody gets to skip ahead. Every time a character gets one page from the full truth, something pulls them off course, kills them, or makes them forget. Once or twice, that's bad luck. Across 4 seasons and multiple cycles, that's a structural immune response, a story protecting itself from being finished before its time. And here's where the confirmed etymology actually locks this drawer shut. Ankui isn't borrowed from any real-world language. The show has been explicit that it's a constructed word built for this mythology alone, and its meaning was confirmed outright at the end of Season 3. It means remember. Think about what that instruction actually requires grammatically. You cannot tell someone to remember something that never happened. The children aren't handing the residents a new fact. They're handing them a citation, asking them to go back and reread a chapter they've already lived, in this life, or one of the ones before it. That is precisely the kind of instruction you give inside a story, not inside a location. Quick aside on a wrinkle in the lore that most breakdowns skip past. The talisman symbolism doesn't cleanly add up. 7 children were sacrificed. That number's repeated enough to be canon at this point. But the ritual imagery and the marks on the talismans keep showing 8. Some corners of the fandom read that 8th mark as the boy in white claiming a seat at the table he otherwise stands outside of. Others have pushed a colder version, that it's not a symbol standing in for a character at all, but a literal head count. An 8th child the show has never once mentioned by name. I don't think we have enough to close this one out yet, but either way, it's the kind of loose thread you'd expect from a text with a printing error in it, not from a physical location with a clean countable history. Stories misprint, places don't. Here's the synthesis, and I promise it's not just me being cute with a bit. A traumatized mind, an unsolved game, and an unfinished story are structurally identical. All 3 are systems built around one buried originating event that the system will not let itself move past. All 3 punish premature resolution. The mind represses, the game resets, the story protects its own pacing. All 3 produce recurring roles rather than recurring souls in any tidy sense. The mother function keeps returning to the wound. The seeker function keeps returning to the puzzle. The protector function keeps getting tested past its limit, regardless of which body is currently wearing the part. And all 3 have exactly 2 forces steering them. Something that wants the wound faced, remembered, integrated, and something that needs it to stay buried, because the buried thing is what feeds it. Boy in white, man in yellow. Same fight whichever drawer you're standing in. If you want proof this isn't just a cute framing exercise, look at Fatima, because her arc this season is the synthesis running live in front of you. Psychologically, she's the show's first real experiment in shadow integration instead of shadow projection. She's turning into the exact thing this town fears most. And instead of losing herself to it the way every prior transformation has gone, her love for the people around her survives the change intact. Mechanically, she's the golem, the thing built from belief and intention that fights for the town rather than against it. Exactly the champion this show has been quietly building toward. Narratively, she's the first character the text has produced who can hold 2 incompatible chapters, human and monster, open at the same time without the page tearing. 3 drawers, 1 woman, 1 season. That's not a coincidence. That's the show showing its work. Let's get concrete, because the finale rearranged the board more than any episode since the Season 2 reveal. For the first time across every cycle this show has referenced, the bones of the Ankui children got recovered, pulled physically out of the tunnels by Tabitha and Jade, at the cost of nearly losing both of them to a collapse that Sophia engineered by sabotaging their way out. That's a genuine first. Every prior attempt at this, across however many loops came before, ended without the bones. This is the one that didn't. The cost of getting them was the bottle tree. Uprooting it to reach the chamber is what triggered everything that went wrong afterward. An earthquake. The sky turning to night in the middle of the day, red lightning tearing across clouds that shouldn't exist yet. If the bottle tree and its faraway relatives really are structural, load-bearing pieces of whatever holds this place together, rather than just clues sitting inside it, then the residents didn't solve a puzzle this season. They pulled a support beam to reach the thing behind it. Elgin died refusing a bargain from Sophia rather than switching sides. The one character this fandom loves to clown on, and he goes out with more spine than half the cast. Mari died to Smiley the moment the earthquake knocked a talisman loose, which is the first concrete proof that the day-night rule isn't as fixed as the town has always assumed. And by the closing minutes, Sophia had personally stripped every talisman out of every home in Fromville and dumped the whole pile into the Faraway Tree, meaning the town enters its final season with no protection at all, at the exact moment the protective boundary between day and night has already started to fail. The showrunners have been fairly open about the intent behind all this, and it's worth folding in because it changes how I read the ending. They've confirmed Tabitha and Jade were always designed as the reincarnated pair the children keep calling back to. That wasn't a Season 3 swerve, that was the plan from the pitch. They've also said repeatedly that this show has never really been about the answers themselves. It's about what those answers cost once you have them. That's a showrunner telling you, in plain language, that getting the bones was never going to feel like winning. It was always going to feel like a bill arriving. Alright, here's the prediction. I'm going to lay out exactly how I think this final season resolves. And I want to be upfront that this is informed extrapolation, not a leak. Nobody outside that production has the actual pages. But run the 3-drawer framework against where Season 4 left the board, and one ending falls out cleanly. First, this does not end with force, and it does not end with escape. Every framework we've built says so independently. The mind can't shoot its shadow. The game doesn't have a violence win condition, or someone would have found it in 4 seasons of trying. The story has already told us, through the children, that the instruction was never run. It was remember. So whatever the final confrontation with the man in yellow looks like, I don't think it's a kill. I think it's an unmasking, in the fullest Jungian sense. Something that exposes what he's actually made of clearly enough that he stops being able to wear anyone else's face convincingly. He may survive the finale. I don't think he gets to keep operating the way he has been. Second, I think the actual win condition is the thing this show has been building towards since Jade first cracked the numbers on the bottle tree, playing the complete version of the song, not the partial one. This cast has been operating on a fractured record the entire series. Gaps in Tabitha and Jade's shared memory, whole chapters neither of them has accessed, paintings of Miranda's and drawings of Victor's that still haven't been fully examined. I think the finale forces the missing pieces of that record into view, probably through Victor, who's been quietly archiving this place since he was a child for exactly this reason. And I think the actual bones, now recovered, function as the last missing notes. Not evidence to be studied, an instrument to be played, at the site where the bottle tree used to stand, completing a song this show has been feeding us in fragments since Season 2. Third, I think Fatima is the mechanism, not a side character. A love the entity has never once managed to colonize is the single thing every framework agrees this place cannot absorb, replicate, or wear as a costume. If there's a character built to physically stand between the residents and the creatures at the exact moment the talismans are gone, it's her. Precisely because she's proof the entity's core trick has a hole in it. Fourth, I don't think this ends with everyone getting out. This show has trained us across 4 seasons that every act of creation or repair here costs a life. A rule the finale reinforced rather than broke. I think the toll lands on Boyd. His entire arc has been the ego under a leadership burden that once nearly turned him into the very cruelty he was trying to prevent. I think his ending completes that arc the way it should. Not corruption, but the sacrifice his position has been asking of him since episode 1, made willingly instead of extracted by force. That's the version of his story that actually closes the loop instead of just repeating Season 3's near miss. And fifth, the actual mechanism of the ending, the thing that ties every drawer shut at once. I think the moment this cycle finally breaks is the moment remembering, winning, and finishing the story. Stop being three separate achievements and become one single action in one scene. The full melody gets played. The bones get laid to rest inside it. The buried thing gets witnessed instead of reburied. If the show pulls that off in the same beat, it isn't cheating three payoffs into one. It's proving the entire thesis of this video, that psyche, game, and story were never separate mysteries. They were one door, and Season 5 is the show finally showing us the room on the other side. That's the file closed for now. Reopen the second episode 1 of Season 5 actually airs. If you think I've got a drawer wrong, or you've got evidence I haven't run yet, that's exactly what the comments are for. This channel runs on your case files as much as mine. Subscribe if you want to be here when Season 5 actually drops and we find out how much of this holds up. Until then, I'll see you in the next investigation.